Hey, what's up, Internet? It is the 8th, and we finally got the first look at Path of Exile Ultimatum, and I wanted to touch on it a little bit. I'm not going to watch the whole trailer and stuff and repeat a bunch of things that you guys probably already saw, and if you haven't, I'll just give you the link to the trailer. You can watch it in full yourself. But there were some interesting things today. Mainly, honestly, the league itself was not the most interesting thing today to me. The most interesting thing was all of these changes to prior league mechanics that are getting updated for the core game. So we should just start with Ultimatum, I guess, and get it out of the way and say it's basically a double, or they say it right here, right? It's a double or nothing league. So you can think of Ultimatum, it takes place in maps, and it's kind of like a turbo ritual. So you'll find the guy. Apparently there's different types of challenges, so they're not all the same, kind of like the different ritual totems, but they'll have different goals, right? They said one was like capture a point. This one here is like kill a certain number of monsters that come in waves. One of them is just to survive and not die. But when you finish the first one, right, you get your reward, and it says, well, you can add a second reward, but you have to add a modifier and repeat the challenge. So this one's got like a totem that it seems to buff both you and the enemies, but it causes everything to take damage over time. And some of these that they describe sound really nasty. One of them was like a flask modifier where the first flask that you click, it'll be the only flask that works for the rest of the challenge. The rest of them will just get turned off. I think Rory during the Bay class mentioned one where your projectiles go in random directions instead of the way you fire them, which actually probably wouldn't matter that much for us. But point is, if you fail, you don't get any rewards. You basically are doing double or nothing every single time, so you're trying to add a new reward. Now there is one big difference here, which is that they mentioned that this ring for the Ultimatum is always there, but it's not like Ritual where you were barriered in and it actually like shrunk the arena. This is like just a kind of like with in Cirrus, where if you step outside of it, he resets the phase. If you step outside of the circle here, it'll give you a warning and tell you have to get back in the circle or you're going to lose the entire challenge. But you're not forced to stay here, which is pretty interesting. And I think that it'll make this a really good league mechanic for totems. I mean, generally I find myself saying that about most league mechanics. Totems are just a good build for most league mechanics. But the fact that this is not a hard barrier makes this a really good totem league, I think. Because the most dangerous part about Ritual, or maybe like also things like the last couple of waves of Simulacrum and Delirium, are that there's no save space, right? If you try to move, like put totems down and move away, there's going to be enemies over there. They'll spawn them on top of you. Things are exploding everywhere. In Ritual, you couldn't go outside the barrier, and oftentimes enemies were just spawning all over the place. Here, if enemies are just spawning within the ring, you can dip out. You can put your totems probably both in and outside the ring, right? And so you can just move around more freely, get outside the ring, come back. I think just in general, it's going to be a totally fine league mechanic for totems. Especially with the crowd control aspect. Like, you know, once you get Freezing Pulse up and running, a lot of these ones that are just survive, you know, even if the monsters are dangerous, you'll freeze them and it won't be that big of a deal. Now, like most league mechanics, there's two layers to this. There's the ones you find in maps, but there's also these ones called Inscribed Ultimatums. And these just drop out in the world occasionally. And they're kind of like one tier, right? These ones you're deciding every tier. And you can stack up to, I guess that goes up to 10 maximum at the higher end of maps. Here, there's only one challenge. But in these ones, you put them in the map device, and inside there is an altar that requires you to sacrifice something. So like this one says, requires sacrifice 1 exalted orb. So you're actually putting up your own collateral to even activate this altar. You know, these, you're technically gambling things that you haven't earned yet, right? It's all free. This, you're giving up something. You actually have to pay to activate this altar. Obviously, the reward here is worth it, right? Double sacrifice currency. So if you get one of these that says 5 exalted orbs, you'll get 10 exalts back. Of course, if you die, you you lose 5 exalts. So this is like the true double or nothing element of the mechanic. But it also sounds like the more fun one, right? This one's, you have to put in 4 nerfs cards. You get 8 back. This is going to be worth a lot more when we get down lower, because Headhunter is now a global item and will always drop everywhere. But because of that, the drop rates of things like Nurse or the Doctor, that stuff is going to get nerfed into the absolute ground, because the Headhunter is just going to be able to drop in every zone. So this would actually be a pretty pog ultimatum to find. This one here is pretty interesting. It's like you get to trade a low value unique for a higher value unique. These ones are probably going to be more common because like they're obviously going to randomize both ends of this. So like there's going to be a wide pool of like low level uniques, like up to like mid tier, and then the reward's going to be like mid tier up to very high end. So, you know, you might be able to do something like this where you get a Whispering Ice and you can get a Void Battery back, right? But these will probably be the more common ones to find. That and the currency ones probably. It still sounds cool though. And you'll be able to see exactly like what challenges are on here. And if you can't run it, just pass it off or sell it to somebody. They've also, it didn't sound like they added a ton of uniques this league. This one was probably the most interesting one, I thought, where it's just a shield with 6 keystones on it. They're all like the Vaal corrupted ones. The Everlasting Sacrifice keystone is new. So that is one you clearly only either you only get it from this shield, or it's a new one they're adding and they haven't shown off yet. I don't know which. I would assume it's just unique to the shield. That makes some more sense, I guess, of having all of these random keystones on the same item. I'm not sure what people will figure out what to do with that. And this kind of like weird Vaal mask. This is another item kind of like Hands of the High Templar that can be modified even though it's corrupted. So you could replace that nearby enemies are crushed with, you could slam this with a Vaal Orb and just keep doing it, right? And replacing that implicit over and over until you get something you wanted. But it, you know, it could brick just like Hands of the High Templar. And that's 9 times out of 10 you're gonna Vaal Orb this and it's gonna turn into a rare shaper item. But I like that kind of fun stuff. I think Hands of the High Templar are pretty fun, even though usually I brick them within like 2 Vaal Orbs. They're also introducing the new reliquary key type, which is called the Vaal reliquary. And so instead of awarding you legacy versions of items, it has a Vaal specific item pool. And it doesn't look like the items are any different, right? Because they show Aziri's Reflection here. These are all the same mods as on the old Aziri's Reflection. So I'm assuming that these are just foil versions of uniques. But they also said, you know, this is the rarest reliquary key ever added to Path of Exile. I'm not sure what that means, because it says, due to the value and power level of the items contained within. I don't know about you guys, but Xerxes' Heart or like Doriani's Delusion, these really aren't the most powerful items in Path of Exile. Even Aziri's Reflection, like, Aziri's Reflection is expensive, but it's not, I don't know. I feel like awarding legacy versions of things like Soul Taker or Chaos Heart were definitely more powerful than a regular Aziri's Reflection that's shiny. So I don't know what they mean by that exactly, but it'll be fun though. I think it'll still be fun to try and get a foil version of Reflection. They did say that unlike those old reliquary keys, these ones have a completely flat weighting. So however many items are in this reliquary pool, they all have the exact same chance to drop. So you're just as likely to get a Reflection out of this as you are like a Xerxes' Heart or something, which is very different from the old reliquary keys where you had like 0 chance to get a foil Headhunter or like a foil Chaos Heart compared to a foil Hiri's Ire or something like that. They showed off a lot of new skill gems. The theme for the new skill gems of this patch seems to be low life and blood mechanics, particularly for melee, like attack builds. It felt like this was the closest thing, I think, to a spell that was shown off. And this is kind of like I don't know how to describe this. It's gross, is how I would describe it. It's just like a blood explosion Apparently, the unique thing about this is that it has the chain tag. So it doesn't have any base chains, but because it does have that tag, you could add chains to it, right? Most everything else was like attacks, like Corrupting Fever, which basically allows you to apply Corrupting Blood to enemies. Reap, which kind of looked like a fancy version of Sweep. Some new support gems that are supporting either like low life or blood magic style stuff. Nothing in there for like Freezing Pulse totems, or really even much for like casters in general. But I don't know. They seem like cool ideas at least, so I'm sure a lot of builds will try to fit some of this stuff in. The real meat of this announcement trailer to me though was all this stuff, which is basically a pass of all the rewards of all the old League mechanics in the game. Or at least the vast majority of them, right? And they're so cool. We've been needing this for a long time. Like here they mention, they bolstered the core drop pool with new currency items, which is like Orb of Binding is finally going into the core game instead of being stuck as a Harbinger currency, which is super nice. They added a couple of new item bases. This is an increased chaos damage. This is Atlas jewelry. If you're not aware that there's some jewelry and helmets and stuff that are specific to certain quadrants of the Atlas, right? You know how they're all separated into regions. So this eyelight ring will drop in some specific, like Valdo's Rest or something. I don't know which. And then they've also added this new Veiled Chaos Orb. This was pretty weird, right? It's like a Chaos Orb that puts a Veiled modifier that isn't revealed on the item on top of that, which to me at first sounded just like, well, it's an easier way to get more unveils, I guess. But they are improving Betrayal on top of all this stuff, or at least the Veiled system. So these might actually be more useful than before, than what I would have thought. This, oh man. The Labyrinth changes are so important. The Labyrinth changes are everything. Number one, and the most important thing, is that you can now take an offering, the things you get from completing a trial, put it in your map device, and it will open a random trial. So you don't have to just leave it completely up to chance about finding your Uber Lab trials. You can, if you get like your first 6 and 4 of them are duplicates, you can chuck 4 of those offerings into your map device, open 4 more random trials. It's just such a blessing. Like, even though it's still got some RNG, it's 1,000 times better than before. Especially with how many ways there are to get offerings now. This is like a perfect change. The other change, which was to the main change anyway, to the Divine Font, the thing that gives you your enchants at the end of a lab. They made it so that when you put the item, you can put any item into the font, and it will show you it'll show you the belt enchant you might get if you're on the belt one. It'll show you the boot enchant, the glove enchant, and it'll give you 3 choices of helm enchant. So you'll know exactly what all possible enchant options are. And you can choose, well, maybe you were there for the boot enchants, and you can tell that it's like, some bad boot enchant you wouldn't want. But hey, there's a high value helmet enchant in one of your options. So you can just carry some helmet bases with you at all times in your stash. And then if you see that, go ahead and grab the helmet enchant. It also basically triples the number of helmet enchant options you get per run, right? So if you're doing Gift of the Goddess with twice enchanted and you're getting like 7 enchants, you're going to get 21 total helm enchant cycles basically. So a lot more helmet enchants. It's not like deterministic in any way, but it is a huge improvement, I think. And you're going to see a lot more boot enchants and things like that, because maybe you were running for helmet enchants, but when you didn't see any of those, like, hey, the good boot enchant was there. You can actually see that and make a decision. Super nice. The Betrayal improvements are a little bit strange to me. They're dead set on this idea of making sure the board resets every time you run Katarina. So what they're doing is they're going to make it even more valuable to kill Katarina, but they're still going to reset the board. So I don't know. I feel like people might still go and just do their normal safe house farming and never kill her. But I think it depends a little bit on how powerful the veiled mods are. One of the things they did is that veiled mods are now more powerful when you reveal them than what the ones you can craft. So if you think about, like, maybe you were putting 8% life and mana from veiled crafting onto your armor. Well, the one that if you reveal that on an item, it'll probably be more like 10 or 12%. So there's going to be some merit to the idea of actually unveiling stuff for crafting bases, right? But I don't know. Like, they've also said that basically there's a 4th tier. So usually you have tier 3 generals. If you have them at tier 3 and then you kill Katarina, they actually give you tier 4 rewards. And this new 4th tier is basically like, for scarabs, for example, it's winged scarabs instead of gilded scarabs. I'm not sure there'll be enough high level rewards here to make this worth forcing a board reset, but I'm going to try it because with the Atlas trees, like the skill trees that allow you to level up your generals a lot faster now, it may be a more viable strat to just spam betrayal missions and get everybody to level 3. Try to get as many of them as close as you can to the right safe houses, and then just go kill Katarina and do it all over again. Because if you can just get like the people, like the right people on the right side, and maybe in research, and then just level up everybody else wherever they're at, and go kill her, that might just be a faster way to progress, especially if the veiled mod stuff is as good as they're saying. We'll see. They also said that they're rebalancing Kadiro, which I guess is necessary, right? The only way, like when they added Harvest back and they left that Parandus coins recipe in the game, that was the only real way to get coins. It was foolish to try and do anything else. So I guess they've rebalanced all the ways you can get coins. It rebalances cost. They added Abyss Scarabs. They buffed essences even further. And I guess that the very top few tiers of essences you can only get from using the corrupted remnant things. I can never remember what those are called. The little corrupted things that you use to actually corrupt the frozen monsters. But I don't know. I'm not sure that the Abyss changes there seemed all that interesting to me. This was really big. The changes to Temple. You can now, besides there's a bunch of buffs basically to the actual map rewards in the Temple. But the biggest thing is you can take a temple that's done and click a button and turn it into a map. And then you can sell that or get one from another player. So you don't have to do any of that whole crap about, using something like TFT to get, buy other people's corruption chambers and stuff. You can just buy these off the trade market, which is super cool. Or if you just want to you finish a temple and you don't want to run it, turn it into a map, and then you can keep doing alpha missions that you come across. And you don't actually lose your temple or have to sit on it. So that was just a perfect change. A lot of blight reward changes. They added a new oil so that you can anoint corrupted items. You couldn't do that before. So now you're not stuck with an anointment on your corrupted, I'd say on your talisman, but somehow one of the only things that are getting nerfed in the items are talismans. But if you do have something else like a corrupted amulet, you could use your tainted oil to change the anointment on it. I think they buffed the anoints onto maps. They made it so that finally that quantity affects the chests. Because it used to be that if you remember how many times I was running blighted maps back in Delirium, I think it was, we were never using alchemy orbs on them. We were just chiseling them and applying anointments because the quantity from making the map harder didn't affect the chests. Well, now it does. So it's going to be a lot more worth to run harder versions of blighted maps, and well, hopefully, right? We'll see how impactful it is. They also did add some blight scarabs on top of the abyss scarabs. a couple of new catalysts. I think this one was critical modifiers, and the other one was speed modifiers, if I remember correctly. They mentioned that they also improved at Ziri's loot table. Like they buffed her chest piece. Gives you +1 to level all Vaal skill gems now. And I guess they buffed the other stats on it. And this is some new staff that, like, I don't know. Queen's Demand seems to go back and forth between 2 different skills. It also gives you cannot be stunned and cannot take reflected damage. I don't know. That skill would have to be really good to justify using that, I think. They also did a pretty long Path of Exile 2 showcase. This is definitely worth watching, if just to see like how much better the game looks. Like you can tell that their animators are having a field day with the new animation system. Like it's like they've been set free to finally animate a game. You can tell like their animators are so much better than they've been allowed to show with the games like Ancient Engine, and it really shows. They also just showed a lot more than I expected. This is like a 15-minute trailer, so I recommend watching this. I'm not going to go over it here. I've already talked a lot, and it's got. I mean, this. They also said this is not coming out this year. Definitely not coming out this year. So I don't want to really waste time talking about something that we're not going to get to mess with. But all told, the league mechanic is pretty interesting. It doesn't seem. Maybe it's like Ritual has put a bias in me towards like this kind of mechanic where I'm like, yeah, okay. It does look a little more interesting than Ritual, but it doesn't like, nothing jumps out at me yet. There is apparently a boss fight. They show a tiny little snippet of a boss fight with whoever this guy is, the guy who keeps offering you these upgrades. He pulls like a giant hammer out of his chest and he gets big. I don't know. So maybe that'll be really cool and worth it, but honestly, I'm looking just more forward to seeing the patch notes. We should get those Monday or Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. I guess it'll be Tuesday my time. Monday we'll get the balance manifesto. I'm interested mainly to see how much the Atlas skill trees are changing, right? Because all of these reward changes are really cool, but it does mean that you want to target farm content more, right? Like you're going to be wanting to do more Blight if you want Blight rewards. Because what they've done with all these changes, they've put the high-end rewards from those league mechanics back specifically in those leagues. One thing that's not mentioned here, by the way, is Delve. Delve basically got crunched, which means like the lower end of Delve is more rewarding, but the higher end is less rewarding. So the deep delvers are not going to find as many fractured fossils and stuff. The low end is going to get more interesting faster. So it's just kind of like crunching Delve further. I don't know if that means the recipes that you go in there for are going to appear at like lower tiers or anything, or if like all is going to show up at a lower tier than it used to. We'll probably need patch notes for that. But basically the league specific stuff works to where if it drops from a boss or is like the top tier item, you have to go do the league mechanic. But if it was not something that dropped from a boss, it's now just part of the core loot pool. So Headhunter, Asylum, I think. The Soul Rest staff from Delve. Like these things that weren't tied to a boss, they're just part of the game now. I assume that Headhunter's drop rate is going to be unbelievably rare. And it's also going to mean that the div card is going to be unbelievably rare. But we'll probably see a similar number of them just because everybody's going to be finding them now. But it's exciting because it feels like with that and the Atlas skill trees, target farming is really coming back strong. Like it was already strong in the last league, and it made the game really fun for me. Like being able to target farm specific areas of the Atlas because of what I wanted. And this is just going to amplify my desire to specialize my Atlas zones into specific league mechanics. I'm really going to want to focus one region to like Blight, if I, assuming I want Blight, or really focus one region into Temple, so that's where I run all my temples. Same thing for Betrayal and stuff. When I'm going to have to pick which league mechanics I really want to focus on, because there's only 8, there's only 8 Atlas regions. So I like the general idea, like the general direction that's going, and I'm more interested in reading more about that and finding the patch notes than I guess I am with Ultimatum. I guess Ritual, by the way, is going core. It's not even mentioned on this page, but Ritual is going core, and it'll have like an 8% spawn rate. I guess what they said during the live stream was that 8% is the new flat rate. So when they implement a league mechanic, it has an 8% chance by default to appear inside of a map. So the new Atlas skill tree change is going to be based around that. Anyway, I don't want to make this too long. I just kind of want to talk about the trailer, because the whole live stream was fun. Finding out all these improvements to the old leagues was really cool, because it was very unexpected. I did not expect them to go back and overhaul all of these old league mechanics, and I just think it's the right move right after the Atlas skill trees to really embrace like how the Atlas zones have become like specialized zones for the whatever league mechanic you want to focus on, and now you've got a lot more like rewarding choices of league mechanics to mess with. So looking forward to patch notes on that. I also want to mention, because the last video I did a channel update where I was talking about Outriders. You probably noticed I did not make any videos about Outriders, and I have a feeling that's just not going to happen, because I spent about 7 days with that game, and my conclusion is that it does not deserve videos. I wish I had better news on that front. I talked a little bit about that today on stream after the live stream stuff. I don't think you're going to see a lot of content about Outriders from me. I won't get into it in this video. You can ask me about it in the comments or on stream, like whenever you catch me live. But for now, it's probably just going to be Path of Exile stuff still. And unless something amazing and drastic changes to Outriders in the next like few days. Because I'm already like done with challenge tier 15 on my Devastator, and they have a lot of changes they need to make. And then the patch today that they described, absolutely none of those changes got made. They just nerfed a bunch of stuff and pissed people off. So I don't know when that game's gonna get patched, but for the moment, it's certainly not worth me wasting time making videos, in my opinion. So what is on the menu is this weekend I'm going to be doing a leveling guide. Basically, I'm going to make a video version of all of my leveling tips in the guide. That should be done sometime, hopefully by Tuesday. And then the next video after that series will probably be for patch notes. I may delay the patch notes to Wednesday so that I can kind of fit the gem info. But it's going to depend, I think, on if anything in patch notes warrants waiting on gems. From what I've seen in the trailer, I don't think much of anything here in the skill gems they previewed seems like it matters to Freezing Pulse totems here. So I might just make a video on patch notes, and then, if there is actually anything to update, we'll update. It kind of looks like a league where there's not going to be much of a reason to update the build guide. Unless we see like an unexpected change to Viridi's Vaal, like a nerf that we're not expecting, or God forbid another nerf to Soul Mantle. Maybe they nerf it on accident again. I don't know, but it doesn't look to me like a build update is really going to be very interesting this league. It just looks like it's going to be a very, very good build for the league mechanic. So I'll see you guys again this weekend for some leveling action. I was going to play on Xbox, but I always forget. I forget that if you look right here below this video panel, console is almost a week later. I always forget that, and there's no way I'm waiting an extra 5.5 days or 5 days and 4 hours or whatever to start the league. So we'll probably be doing that on PC. I have a bunch of microtransactions on PC anyway that apparently don't transfer to console at all. So that'll probably just be on PC like usual. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to stream the leveling stuff or I'm just going to record it on Shadowplay like I am right now. I suspect it'll be the latter, just so the quality is higher, because I want those videos to just kind of stick around and be persistent as part of the guide. But I'll definitely be live streaming again, at least for patch nodes, and then obviously again at League Start like usual. If you want to drop me a follow, you can find me at twitch.tv/WallachTV. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.